Romans 13. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except by God's appointment, and the authorities that exist have been instituted by God. So the person who resists such authorities resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will incur judgment. Okay, so just on the start there, it sounds pretty straightforward, sounds really simple. Obey the authorities. How would the authorities get in power? They're instituted by God. Now, instituted, I don't think that this necessarily is talking about every specific government ever being instituted by God. The process of government is the thing instituted by God. Governing authorities are the thing. So I think that's what's going on here. Every person should be subject to the governing authorities. Paul is not doing a compare and contrast with governing authorities of other places that he does not live. He is simply talking about government is established. It is a form to be able to manage and oversee the world. It is a system that's been instituted by God. So don't think he is making anything more than that as a statement that they are established. Government is established, not any one particular government. Some will go in the direction of it doesn't matter, but I think that's what he's doing. So do not resist the ordinances of God, and those who resist will incur judgment. Well, I think that's just natural. If the government is here and government has power, then those who resist will incur some kind of judgment. For rulers cause no fear for good conduct, but bad. Okay, so this is his rationale for why you should obey, because if you do good conduct, you have no reason to fear the government. Do you desire not to fear authority? Do good, and you will receive its commendation, because it is God's servant for your well-being. But be afraid if you do wrong, because government does not bear the sword for nothing. It is God's servant to administer punishment on the person who does wrong. So Paul, very simple, his statement his rationale here is doing good will get you commendation, doing wrong will have the sword come against you. Power, I think, is what it is there, not necessarily the sword of death, but the sword of power. And it's there to administer punishment on the persons who do wrong. Now, if we take that to a logical end in one way, well then, why did the government put, that would be both the Jewish authorities and the Roman authorities put Christ to death because he did no wrong. So Paul is clearly talking here about the principle of the thing, not every single application of the thing. So he's not saying that government can't do what is wrong, but saying that overall the government is in power for this very reason, to administer and to see that right is rewarded and that wrong is punished. Morning in tomorrow, morning in Papstio. For this reason, you also pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants devoted to governing. Pay everything that is owed. Taxes to whom taxes are due. Revenue to whom revenue is due. Respect to whom respect is due. Honor to whom honor is due. So, I've heard many times Christian organizations and groups claiming that you shouldn't, as a Christian, pay taxes. Paul doesn't seem to agree with that. He says give taxes, give revenue, give respect, and give honor. And why are they due? Because they are in power, not because of what they do, and not because of what they do with it. So one of the things that, I'll just go in this direction of comedians. There is a level at which you poke fun of politicians, and I think that is fine. But there's a point at which you are condescending to them, like you are just ridiculing them. Ridiculing, I don't think, is the same as making jokes. But in some ways, like if you go to, they do roast in Washington. They bring out the president and they make jokes and they do that. They do that for other people too. They poke fun of idiosyncrasies. But when you start going in the direction of ridicule, I think that's where you cross the line with that. But here, I think he's going further than that of you pay your taxes. If it's revenue that has to go, if it's respect, what do you respect? You respect the office. You may not respect the person and the character of the person, no matter what party they're from. You still respect the office and you give honor to them. This is one of those things that I started seeing happen, and it might have happened prior to this, but I gotta say, in my lifetime, I don't remember anybody calling President Clinton Mr. Clinton. However, with President Bush, I started seeing them call him Mr. Bush instead of president. And to me, that was a lack of honor. That was a lack of respect. Now, maybe they didn't honor him and they didn't respect him, but I've seen that happen since. That they'll just say Mr. Trump, that they'll say Mr. Obama. It's become a way to not give full honor. And Paul here saying straight up, do this. Why would Paul be doing this? One of the things that's happened in Rome, if you remember, is there have been the Jews kicked out of Rome. And so you're obedient to them. You go along with them. You do what they govern says to do. Was there a reason for the Jews to get kicked out of Rome? No. So, but Paul is saying it is most advantageous. They are the ones instituted. Or government is instituted, not this particular government, but government is. And so you are best off when you obey that. Now, clearly, he's not making an argument that you obey the government when it is against God's laws. Certainly not saying that. Hasn't made any arguments to that point in here yet. Oh, no one anything except to love one another, for the one who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. I love this. Oh, no one anything except to love one another. Boy, it would be fantastic to be able to live in a society where that was fully possible. I wish I did not owe money on my house, but I owe money on my car. I do. It would be hard to live in a society to save up the amount of money to be able to get that while paying the same amount or more to rent something as to buy it. So I know that we, have that, but I think here, not about banks and lenders is necessarily the biggest problem. It is, do I owe my fellow neighbor something? Don't be the one who's a debtor to your neighbors all the time. Don't be the one who's always borrowing from other people. So, do I love you? Do I need to love you? That's the debt I should have, and that is what will fulfill the law. I'd say, I just love, like it says this several times. Fulfilling the law is loving your neighbors. For the commands, do not commit murder, do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, and if there is any other commandment, are summed up in this: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law. So he's making a fuller argument here. Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And he said, love the Lord your God, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, Paul is fleshing this out further. Committing adultery is not an act of loving your neighbor. Murder is not an act of loving your neighbor. Stealing is not an act of loving your neighbor. Coveting is not an act of loving your neighbor. So, fulfilling the law means loving your neighbor. And do this because we know the time that it is already the hour for us to awake from sleep, for our salvation is now nearer than when we became believers. Yes, Paul, it is, but yet it still doesn't feel like it's any closer on some level. But yes, the day is always drawing closer. So wake up, sleeper. So don't be asleep in this. Don't neglect being active and doing things. Be awake. Be on alert. Be doing what you need to. Go actively love your neighbor. The night is advanced towards dawn. The day is near. So then, we must lay aside the works of darkness and put on the weapons of light. Let us live decently as in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and sensuality, not in discord and jealousy. So what is he talking again? So living in the light, living in the day. So he's making a comparison of the deeds that are done in the daytime, the deeds that are done at night. What are we doing? How are we living? He presupposition is loving your neighbor is the culmination of the things that we ought and need to do. And then that's compared to living in the daytime versus living in the night, living and doing what is good versus living and doing what is evil. And then what should we do that you don't do in the daylight? You don't do carousing. You don't do drunkenness. You don't do sexual immorality and sensuality. You don't do discord, and you don't do jealousy. So 6 things are given there, 6 being the number of man, could be the flesh represented there. But instead put on Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to arouse its desires. So instead of those 6 things, we put on Jesus Christ, and all of those things could be summed up in provision for the flesh to arouse its desire. Make no provision for the flesh unto desire. I'd have to go look up the LXX to see, is that the word for Cain when sin is crouching at the door and its desire is for you? It wants you to be a participant in it. It is going to draw you in to doing that thing. Now, again, I don't think that we need to just go down the list here and say, what does this really mean? What is carousing? What is drunkenness? What is sexual immorality? When does it include it? When does it not include it? When where are the borders? I don't think that's the point. The point is, these are desires that you have, that you give impulses to, and that you get carried away in. So I think that's what we have going on here. Funny side note here.